Hello and welcome to Firearm Freedom. This is going to be another First Impressions video. And in today's First Impressions video, we're going to be taking a look at the HK45 Tactical. I just got done with the first range day with this pistol and we had about 300 rounds through it. With a pretty good variety of ammunition, we shot mainly Freedom Munitions 230 grain ball. I shot some Blazer brass, I shot some Browning BXP hollow points, and also some Hornady Critical Duty plus P45 ammunition. As you could imagine, the gun had absolutely no issues, no hiccups whatsoever. So a couple of years ago, you would see HK coming out with the HK45 Tactical. It just had their threaded barrel and it had standard sights. I always thought this was kind of dumb because if you're going to have the suppressor, I figure why wouldn't you throw in the suppressor height sights so that way you could easily see over the suppressor from the factory. And now with this new model, this is the newest version of the HK45 Tactical, we have the full-size suppressor sights and the rear sight is adjustable for elevation. It's not adjustable for windage, but it is elevation adjustable. I found that this gun was absolutely dead on out of the box. In fact, the first couple of shots out of the pistol were in about a 4-inch group at 20 yards, which I thought was absolutely awesome. This gun specifically is an upgraded version from the original USP. It is a great pistol, but some would say it's not as modular as other pistols in modern day. Now, you guys have to remember this came out early 90s, so although this rail doesn't fit most accessories nowadays, back then this was extremely innovative for the time. Now we can see obviously the HK45 is going to have a standard 1913 Picatinny rail. This is now going to allow us to easily install whatever standard attachments we want to put on the bottom. The thread pitch on the barrel is going to be a little bit of an interesting European thread pitch. It's going to be 16 by 1 left hand. And you can see there obviously the threads are going to look somewhat odd to us American shooters, but I will say this European thread pitch, on the contrary to what a lot of people normally think when they first pick it up, it is a little bit more of a pain in the butt to find adapters for, but once you find the adapter, it's going to ensure that the suppressor actually does not back off anywhere near as much as the standard American thread pitch adapters do. So I found that once I put my 16 by 1 left-hand piston in my Ghost 45 from Dead Air, it did a really good job of just not backing off at all. And while we have the suppressor on the end, let's talk about the overall fit and feel when the suppressor and the light are on the gun. As you could imagine, it's a very, very heavy setup, but because of HK's recoil reduction design inside the gun, which we'll take a look at in a moment, it really does a good job of mitigating the recoil well to the point that it really feels like you're shooting a 9mm. In fact, the first couple of shots that I took out of the gun, I was blown away by the recoil mitigation. Another interesting thing that I found out when I purchased this full-size HK45 was the fact that HK was now making certain pistols here in the United States. And this is going to be one of those guns. So you can see here on the side what would normally say made in Germany says made here in Columbus, and it is made in the USA. Another thing that I noticed is that because it's made in the USA, normally you would see quite a bit more slide markings on the pistol. If we take a look at this USP here, this is a USP that is made in Germany. We can see the made in Germany little stamp here on the side. We have our serial number here on the barrel itself. We have our HK stamp. And then on the other side of the slide, we also have our standard HK markings here. We have our area where we can tell the date of manufacture. And then we also have our serial number again on this side of the slide. On the HK45 here, you can see it's a very plain slide. The serial number is not on that side anymore, and it just says HK45 on the side with 45 auto. There's no additional markings or anything like that, and from everything I can tell, there's absolutely no difference in quality of the firearms made in the US by HK versus the firearms that are made in Germany. I will say there is slight differences. Obviously, this HK pistol will still have their hostile environment finish, but the finish does feel a little bit more, I don't want to say rough, but just kind of has like a Parkerized-like feeling to it. It's not as glossy smooth as this USP is here, so I'm sure it is the same durability in the finish, but it does feel slightly different. You will also get some parts that are still made in Germany, like this magazine, and I'm sure there's quite a bit more internal parts that are also made in Germany. As you can see here, this is a model with a manual safety, but also it acts as a decocker. So when you are in the single action position, you can decock the pistol into double action, or you can leave it cocked and carry it like a 1911 cocked and locked. You can also obviously put the safety on once the pistol has been decocked to have an extra level of safety while you're carrying it. While we're talking about the decocker, let's talk about something interesting that happened to me when I was shooting the pistol. I don't want to say this is a downside because I think this is more user error. You can see that it's a very large decocker and safety lever. When I shoot a pistol, I have a very thumbs high forward grip. Well, you can see that when I do that, my finger is on the decocker. Now, this didn't happen to me a lot, but it did happen to me when I was shooting the Plus P ammunition with slightly more felt recoil. What would happen is I was holding the gun so tight that when the pistol recoiled backwards, my finger would inadvertently hit the decocker. And I kind of flinched because I all of a sudden felt what should have been a single action light reset to now a heavy double action pull. Now, like I said, this is going to be more user error. This is not going to impede on the functioning of the gun at all because you're still going to be able to shoot it. It just might throw you off a little bit. So if you do notice that that is happening, you might want to just adjust your grip slightly to not ride as high. And as far as the only other kind of negatives or downsides that I noticed is the magazines, similar to the USP, are not as drop free as other magazines. And pretty much what I found is that if the gun is held completely vertically up and down, the magazine is going to drop out just fine. But if you do tilt the gun like you normally would to change the magazine, you're going to find that it actually it comes out about halfway, and even shaking it can be a little bit of an issue, so you do have to grip and rip the magazine. I found that that happened to me quite a few times, and I think that once the magazines break in a little bit more and wear in as far as the finish on the outside wearing in, I think you'll have less of a problem, but I definitely felt like that was something to note. In talking about the magazines, I think it's also another interesting point that the HK45 is going to be slightly more limited in rounds that it can carry in the magazine. You can see we have 10 rounds here. Now you can get base plate extensions, but they do stick out a good amount. You can see that we have an original USP magazine here that can fit 12 rounds. HK slimmed the round count so that the pistol just felt better in the hand, and I will say they achieved that. It does feel quite a bit more ergonomic than the original USP does, and that was a huge complaint on the USP. It did shoot extremely well suppressed. I was very, very impressed by how the recoil was when the gun was suppressed, because I know a lot of other guns out there generally have a pretty interesting recoil when you shoot them suppressed. It kind of has this like wonky feeling back and forth because there's such a large amount of mass up at the top moving backwards. Because of HK's recoil reduction system, which we will look at now, it allows the gun to really soak up a lot of that recoil. Now you can see here the recoil reduction system is going to be integrated with this kind of plastic bushing, so that way it's going to have even more recoil reduction than your standard design. Compared to the original USP design, which does an extremely good job of mitigating the recoil, I do think the HK45 design is slightly less complicated and going to be just a little bit better. And I think overall, the gun as a whole is a step up from the USP. As far as the trigger pull, you have probably about a 10 to 12 pound trigger pulling back, a little bit of stacking up there, and then you'll get your break. Obviously, your second shot is going to be single action, and the trigger pull in single action here is going to have just a slight amount of take up, much smoother, and then you're going to hit a crisp wall and a crisp break. The reset here is also not bad at all. A little bit out, a little bit more take up, and then your brake again. You won't have an ambidextrous decocking lever, but you can get one and just simply install it on the other side. And you will have an ambidextrous magazine release and then also an ambidextrous slide stop / release. This version of the HK45 is going to come with a really awesome sight picture. You have a nice single tritium dot up at the front and then a blacked out rear sight, and that's really going to aid in some very accurate fast shooting that I found was awesome at the range, and the sights do perfectly clear the suppressor. That's pretty much going to wrap this video up, guys. This pistol was amazing, and I really didn't expect anything less from a full-size hammer-fired HK. If you guys have any further questions about this pistol at all, feel free to throw them down in the comments section, and I absolutely will get back to you. Also, go ahead and head down to the description and check out the Firearm Freedom Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Backwood US account. We have a ton of different accounts, so pretty much whatever social media site you're on, we have an option for you, and you can see some awesome daily posts on all 4 of those accounts. While you're at it, click that subscribe button and ring that bell so you don't miss out on any of the awesome high quality review content that we have here on the main official Firearm Freedom YouTube channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, stay tuned for more great videos to come soon.